Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'm David Hopper, Austin Bureau Chief of 360degreesound.com, a music site where we bring you music from all angles. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been doing a series for our readers and viewers called CD Junkies. We've had dozens and dozens of CD collectors from around the world show off their collections and talk about why they love the compact disc. Today, I'm joined by Bryer Sisneros. He's a 25-year-old living in San Diego, California, and he runs the popular YouTube channel Bryer's Music Showcase, where he has over 2,000 subscribers. Bryer, thanks for joining 360 Degree Sounds 3 CD Junkies.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
I wonder if you kind of start by telling us how long you've been collecting CDs, and do you remember the first CD you ever bought?
Yeah, so I started collecting CDs back in 2016. I was 16 at the time, so it's about 9 years now, if I did the math correctly. But yeah, but I was into music at that point, but before I was kind of just streaming. I had Amazon Music for a long time, and then I kind of switched to Spotify. But there was always that itch in me that was always kind of drawn to physical media, because I'm Gen Z, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's true, but I feel like my generation was the last generation to really truly grow up with like physical media because I had VHS, I had DVDs growing up, and so I always have that attachment to that sort of thing. And there were CDs growing up, but I didn't really pay attention to them at the time. But once I got into music, eventually got to the point where, okay, I think it's about time I start to actually own something, to actually own something physical. And when I was 16, I didn't have money, so my mom would buy CDs for me. And I actually do remember the first four CDs, and I actually do still have them here. And this was from Walmart. This was back when Walmart's had a whole section dedicated to CDs. Nowadays, it's just like so small. You can't, it's like
Yeah.
barely non-existent. But the first CDs that she bought for me were a Guns N' Roses Greatest Hits, Master Puppets by Metallica, Who's Next by The Who, and the fourth one, and this is the reason why I remember it was 2016 when I started, is because it was close when this person passed away. It was Black Star by David Bowie.
Wow.
And so that really got me started. And eventually, once I did start getting a job and getting paid, the first CDs I bought with my own two money, and this was back, I was using Amazon. So the first CDs I bought from Amazon were Close to the Edge from Yes and Genesis's Foxtrot. And then from that point on, I've just been buying my CDs by myself ever since.
Awesome. Well, that's an excellent group of CDs for your first CDs. A lot of times it's something someone's embarrassed about or whatever, but you started off very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so about how many CDs do you have in your collection today?
Um, as of now, I have 1,818 CDs. The reason why I know that is because I actually keep a spreadsheet of all the CDs I collected. So every time a CD comes in, I just quickly log it in, name of the album, band or artist, when it came out, and the genre. I kind of like it, have it organized like that. And so yeah, and it's still growing. Probably, I know there's CDs in the mail, so that's going to change pretty soon.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's quite a collection. I don't use a spreadsheet, but I've been using the Discogs app. You ever
Hmm.
tried that?
Yeah, I've tried before. I'm very behind.
Yeah, yeah. Takes some time when you have such a big collection,
Yeah.
but you can at least like scan the barcode with that
Hmm.
app that makes it easier. Um, yeah, so in general, what do you love about the CD format?
I mean, when I got started, um, it was really coming came down to convenience at the time because, you know, again, Walmart and Best Buy had the big CD sections, and so it was always available. And it was kind of this was just before vinyl got really big, and so that's where I kind of went with it because it was just the easiest thing to get access to. And another thing I really liked about it was, for one, they're generally cheaper, so you can get a lot more for your money. And the other big thing was just due to the size, because of course smaller, you can fit a lot more on a shelf. Because you can kind of see behind me, I do have vinyl records behind me, but it's hard to tell, but it is getting to the point where it's almost like halfway done with that shelf already, and that's like about 50 records so far. Where you see above, there's more CDs above it, and obviously that's a ton more. And so that's really the big thing. I kind of stuck with CDs just for the storage and just the convenience of it. Um, and you know, again, there were CDs around the house, so I was familiar with that as well. And so it's kind of why I stuck with it.
Hmm. No. Um, about how often do you buy new CDs and I guess well used and new CDs and from where are you buying your CDs?
I get quite a lot of CDs by the month. I have a whole like series on my channel where I just go through all the CDs I pick up throughout the month, and it can vary. I think so far this month I have about 20, 25-ish CDs for this month for the month of June. Um, but I know there were some months like I got over 60. And it's because again I was able to just find them for very cheap, and I had some viewers kind of send stuff to me as well, which also helps it add up. Um, and when it comes to myself, where I tend to buy it, um, I usually, when I started, it was just Amazon for a while because at that point I didn't know if there were any record stores near my place that sold CDs. But I did eventually find a place that was relatively close, and it was a great place. It's still there. I go there frequently. It's called Folk Arts Rare Records. It's got a huge section dedicated to CDs, and that's where the CD collection really started to get even bigger was when I found that out. And that's really the big place I go to. There are some other places. Um, there's a there's a place called WM Records. It's kind of a more recent thing I discovered. That had some nice stuff in there. But there's many others, but those are the two that are just popping into my head. And whenever I get paid, I always try to plan out like what do I want, and let's just plan out days to go ahead and go record store shopping and just see what they got, just to see if I can take advantage of it.
Yeah, awesome. Um, from looking at your channel, it seemed you seem to be pretty big into classic rock. I know you spotlighted a lot of classic albums from the 60s and 70s. Is classic rock like one of your favorite genres? What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, yeah. Generally, classic rock has always been like my safe spot. That's what really drew me into music. But I would say these days, especially, I mean, personally, I have a pretty wide palette, and that's something I kind of take pride in. Is just kind of like trying to diverse myself in as much different styles as possible, because I'm one of these people where when I get hooked, I'm hooked. But if there's any moment where it starts to kind of get boring, and I lose interest immediately. And so I always want to keep the collection varied, diverse, I always have something for a specific mood, and so it keeps me from getting bored. But still, at the end of the day, 60s, 70s, 80s, that's usually my go-to. That's usually what I like. Um, I have many favorite. Some of my favorite bands are in the classic rock. Queens is obviously number one. They were the band that got me started into music. But I also love like a lot of metal bands like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and some more different types, more progressive rock like Genesis and even Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all that sort of things. Kate Bush, if I hadn't mentioned already, but yeah, that's kind of like my favorite stuff. But I've definitely dabbled in some more modern stuff, like Sabrina Carpenter, The Lemon Twigs, Wise Blood, Olivia Rodrigo, um, just so I just so I can kind of keep things fresh and just make sure I'm not totally stuck in the past.
Yeah, wow, those are some great picks, both the classic and the modern. I like all those artists.
Nice.
Take like Genesis for instance. They of course had their prog rock era with
Hmm.
Peter Gabriel the first 5 or 6 years, and then um, kind of interesting how they evolved because Phil Collins took over, and they were still pretty proggy and arty
Yeah.
before for long in the '80s they got kind of indistinguishable from Phil Collins solo. I
Right.
thought very straight ahead and
Yeah, but
poppy.
I love
But
both eras.
yeah, it's all great. So you do you have a favorite Genesis album or
I mean, Foxtrot is my favorite. That's kind of why it was the first
yeah
CD I bought
yeah.
by myself because I've always kind of, even though I love both eras, it's always this album that kind of has that little edge, a little bit of a bite to it that I really gravitate towards. But like I said, I love both eras equally.
Mhm.
Um, but it really comes down to the mood I'm in.
Yeah. Foxtrot is great. I think Selling England by the Pound is probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a great
But
one.
I like it. They're a very consistent band.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so which CDs have been getting a lot of spins lately?
Um, this one specifically has been getting a lot of spins. Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys. We just lost Brian Wilson recently, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time. And so it always has the emotional attachments. But given Brian's passing, I've definitely hits even closer. But that's one of the big ones. But other things I've been listening to, I have some right here. I've been listening to a lot of Grand Funk Railroad. Just picked up these two albums. I have their debut, and then we have Pluribus Funk, which I was which are very great. I've been getting into a Grand Funk Railroad kick in recent times. Um, I mean, King Crimson's another one I've been listening to a lot because I have getting a kick on them. UFO, I just did a video on my channel where I talked about their first two albums, which were more space rock oriented. This was pre Michael Schenker, um, but of course I was listening to this one too. I think this is probably my favorite UFO album right now. Um,
Yeah, the live album.
yeah, I do. I have the box set.
Oh wow. Oh nice. I remember when
Yeah,
that came out. That came out a few years ago, right? The box set.
yeah, like a
Yeah,
few
yeah,
years ago. It's
yeah,
really good.
yeah.
Uh, and then in terms of pop, this one surprised me. Like I did not expect this album to be in heavy rotation, but it's actually Cher's Heart of Stone
Oh nice.
because I only bought it because I knew the big hits. If you can turn back time, but I listened to the whole album and I was like enjoying every song. So that was kind of a big surprise for me. But I'll showcase one more thing I was listening to. This is another box set I picked up recently. It's the Gillan box set, which has all the albums. We know Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. This is the band he formed while he was out of the band. Um, heard there was some really good stuff, and as an Ian Gillan fan, I really wanted to check out that stuff. And pretty much I enjoyed every album on this. Except maybe the debut is kind of maybe it's a little bit different, but majority of the stuff is actually really top notch. Good old hard rock at its finest.
Hmm. Awesome. Are you tell us a little bit, I guess, about your music discovery. I guess I'm particularly interested in like the classic stuff. Is it sometimes aided by like algorithms on streaming, or is it like you kind of doing research online yourself? Or if you could talk a little bit about how, discovering classic stuff that's new to you.
Yeah, it really comes down to other channels I watch. I watch a fair bit of music channels, and sometimes they'll bring up an album that's will pique my interest, and then if I'll just kind of go from there. Like sometimes I'll still have like Apple Music and I'll probably sample a little bit, but generally I'm at a point where I want to be surprised when I buy it. I just want to if I'm interested, I'll just kind of see how much it is, and if I can afford it, I'll just quickly buy it, and then I'll just listen to it just blindly, and we'll see if I like it or not. It's kind of like the whole kind of like how it was back in the day where you didn't have much to go by. You just had to just buy it and just see if you liked it or not. That's something I kind of want to keep that mentality there.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so what are some of your most prized discs in your collection, and what makes them so special?
Mm. Yeah, I have a couple right over here. The first one's kind of funny because it's honestly the worst album I've ever heard in my life, but it's actually gonna be the Beach Boys' "Summer in
Oh,
Paradise"
yeah.
because it's terrible. I know it's bad, but it's just so hilariously terrible, especially the part where Mike Love raps, which is so terrible, but I find it so funny. And and also it's just the overall packaging I just find so fascinating because it's not like your standard jewel case or anything. It's one of those like weird ones you have to open in a certain way, and it's a bit more cardboard. It has a
Yeah,
different tray.
that is interesting.
Yeah,
I've
I did
never
a
seen packaging like that.
yeah I did a TikTok video on this, and it's actually currently my most viewed TikTok. And I posted on YouTube too, but TikTok, it's where it's still getting views, still gets likes on it. So it has that going for it. It was good for something at the end of the day. The next one I'm going to show, and it's kind of more, well, in terms of America, this person doesn't really mean much, but I was very shocked when I discovered this person. It's a Japanese artist with named Maria Takayoshi, and this is her fifth or sixth album. It's called Variety. It came out in 1984, and this was kind of another like blind buy. I knew the song Plastic Love, and it was really came out random because I play a little bit of bass. You can kind of see the head back there, and I was just looking at bass tabs, and I just stumbled upon this Plastic Love, and I just immediately loved it. And I just had to find out what album it was on. And I just went out and bought it, and I just loved it ever since. And I've become a big fan of Maria, and I have all her studio albums. And it's really this album that kind of really gave me more chances to listen to more Japanese music because I'm a pretty young kid. I like Japanese animation and stuff like that, and there's always music playing in that. And but I never really had any Japanese CDs in my collection, and so Maria Takeyoshi was the one that kind of started it. And so I've been trying to dabble in more Japanese artists as I can. It's tougher because, of course, they're Japanese imports, so you have to pay a bit extra for shipping. But when I get a chance, I usually try to make room for it. Um, and then this CD that I have, it's a very another obscure thing. It's I think it's currently still the most I've spent on a CD because of just how rare it is. And it's actually a soundtrack. It's called Cats Don't Dance. It was just it was kind of like a box office flop when it first came out, but I remember watching it when I was a kid, and it was one of my favorite animated musicals growing up. And so I just got it for nostalgic purposes because I liked all the songs on it. But it's very rare. I've seen this go for like $300 at most because I think it was just for like promotional for like radio places and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was not really meant for the consumer,
Mhm.
but some people were able to sell it. I was lucky enough to get this for 60, which is still a
Mhm.
lot, but it's better than 300. And I
Yeah.
just went with it while I can.
Yeah.
Um, and one more thing I'll talk about. I didn't bring them out because there's a ton, but of course my Queen collection, which I have on that shelf. I'm trying to build a bigger my big I'm trying to grow my Queen collection more, trying to get as many variants of CDs as I can, as well as the vinyl. Um, yeah, it's getting quite big, but I know there's a lot more out there. So we'll see if I can keep growing it as we go. As Queen is still my all-time favorite band.
Yeah.
So
So you
hey,
you own all their albums on CD?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty much. But I have a couple like I have two copies of A Night at the Opera. I have the 2011 remaster, and I have a Chinese version of it, which is just a kind of different. I thought it'd be kind of cool to own that.
Cool. Um, some CD collectors are kind of, I guess, more in the I guess audiophile space, and they value like different masterings because sometimes like
Hmm.
there's remasters and different mixes. Is that something you are into at all, like in terms of like the different masterings and mixes of albums?
Um, yes and no.
Yeah.
On one hand, I'm kind of interested to hear how a different pressing sounds,
Mm.
but at the end of the day, I usually once I have a version that I like, I usually just stick with it.
Mm.
Um, but it depends. It depends on the album and depends on the mood. But I know I do have friends who are into that. So,
Mm.
but it is fascinating to hear them talk about the slight differences between one pressing to another.
Mm.
It can get fascinating.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so with your YouTube channel and TikTok, Breyer's Music Showcase, as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot of subscribers and have got a lot of views and a lot of comments. I see. I imagine it's been fun for you to connect with all these different CD enthusiasts, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, when I started the channel, it was just something to give me something to do
Mm.
because I don't want to go too in depth on it right now because but you know, I was kind of depressed during the time and didn't have I just had a lot of free time. And I just thought, you know, might as well start a channel, just talk about something that I like, and it kind of just went from there. And through the channel, I've met some good friends. I collaborate with some of them still to this day. And yeah, just having that community to kind of talk about music and sharing what they like and sometimes they give me suggestions. It makes things a lot more fun and more exciting to just kind of keeps you motivated to just keep going and just keep making videos and hopefully people will be entertained by them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the stats out there have shown that CDs seem to be on an uptick in terms of, increasing in sales in recent years. I mean, obviously streaming dominates, and I guess physical media is kind of niche, but you mentioned you're Gen Z, and I've talked to a number of Gen Z members who are into CDs and really like the tangible aspect of physical media and the ability to collect, their favorite artists. So, with that said, I was wondering your thoughts on the future of the CD. Um, do you think it'll be something that's here to stay, or do you think we'll continue to see a resurgence like we've seen it with vinyl, or what's your take?
um yeah, I mean, I would definitely would like to see that little bit of resurgence because I feel like CDs were kind of ignored for a period of time, especially when vinyl got popular again. People kind of brushed CD to the side, like it's going to be obsolete soon. But to hear that people are kind of going back to CDs, it is kind of nice to kind of see. You know, I had people said that, oh, vinyl is the way to go. It's the only way to listen to music authentically. But I always thought CDs were just as valid. I didn't mind. I thought they sounded fine. Um, Again, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, just the convenience and the storage aspects of it is what's I find great about it. Um, but you know, as long as artists are still willing to make a CD version, I think CDs are definitely going to be here to stay. And for the most part, many artists still have a CD variants on their new albums. Um, but as long as artists are going to keep the CD going, like I feel like CDs are going to be here to stay for quite a long time.
Hmm. Yeah, I hope so. I think so too. Um, but yeah, great. Thanks so much, Bryer. And thanks everyone for watching. That was Bryer Sisneros, the latest uh, member of our CD Junkies series. We've been doing this for a few years now and spotlighting CD collectors from around the world. Make sure you subscribe to Breyer's YouTube channel, Breyer's Music Showcase, and you can find him on TikTok as well. And please stay tuned to 360degreesound.com where we continue to bring you music from all angles. Thanks again, Bryer.
Thank you very much.
Take care.